This is Dimitri Lascaris reporting for The Real News from Montreal, Canada. As The Real News reported a few weeks ago, a flotilla of ships has set sail from Copenhagen to the besieged and devastated Gaza Strip. They are carrying human rights activists from around the world, and they are stopping at various European ports as they make their way toward the Eastern Mediterranean. Their goal is peaceful, to draw the attention of the world to an unlivable open-air prison in which 2 million Palestinians, over one half of whom are children, are trapped. I will be joining the flotilla this week in Lisbon to cover the expedition for The Real News. In the interim, we have been speaking periodically to some of the activists who are taking part in this expedition, and today we are joined by one of those activists, Claude Leostic. Claude is president of the Platform of French NGOs for Palestine. She has been active on behalf of Palestinian human rights for many years in France and in Palestine, including as main organizer of the French contingent in the 2011 Stay Human Freedom Flotilla. She has been coordinating the 2018 Right to a Just Future Flotilla in France and was on board yesterday for the passage of 2 Freedom Flotilla boats that were traveling up the Seine River through central Paris. She speaks to us today from her home in Brest in Brittany. Thank you so much for joining us, Claude.
Thank you.
Claude, why don't you start by telling us what happened yesterday when those 2 boats from the Freedom Flotilla attempted to dock in central Paris?
What happened is really appalling, you know. We had arranged to have this meeting near one place that is really symbolic, which is called the Institute of the Arab World in Paris. And leaving from the north of Paris to the Institute, we were supposed to be met by personalities, by politicians, and of course, a crowd of supporters. And when we left that place, we had docked the night before. We were stopped by the river police, and RoboCops coming to our 2 little boats. We were stuck in a lock which they had blocked deliberately, and they kept us there for 2 hours and a half, meaning that we would be late for the meeting we had with the population of Paris and our supporters. So when finally they let us go, they kept around us. You know, you had 4 of these high-speed police boats, river boats, getting along us and pushing us along and pressing on all the time. You know, sometimes getting so close that our boat would rock, and it was really getting difficult and even dangerous. So that went on for a long, long time. And finally, they said that we couldn't have the banners with the ship to Gaza on the side and things, that it was forbidden. I mean, it was really harassment, political harassment by the Paris police. When we finally got close to the place where we were supposed to dock to meet our friends, they stopped us. They had told us that they would stop us, and we had said we would try to go. I mean, it had been arranged, you know, with the police authorities before, but something changed, and no one is going to say who made the decision. Our politicians are cowards in that respect. And so when we tried to dock, the boats, the police boats, came to us, pushed us along, sent us back to the center of the river, to the middle of the river, and pushed us away and away and away from the Seine and from our supporters. At the same time, there were, I would say about a dozen police cars, you know, those vans with the sirens and the lights flashing on the streets just above the quay where our friends were waiting, continuing all along with us until we were out of Paris waters. It was really political harassment, political denial of freedom and of freedom of expression for us French people. And it is something which is totally unacceptable.
Now, on May 14th, Claude, the international media reported that France's President Emmanuel Macron condemned the Israeli military shooting of thousands of unarmed protesters in Gaza during the Great March of Return, which began on March 30th of this year. Macron's government has also opposed the Trump administration's move of the US Embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem and the Trump administration's withdrawal of the US from the Iran nuclear deal. Both of those decisions were strongly supported by the government of Benjamin Netanyahu. It seems quite difficult to reconcile what you've just described with the publicly stated positions of the Macron government towards all of these issues. Whose side is Emmanuel Macron and his government really on here?
Oh, well, Dimitri, I'm not sure. And we're showing, I mean, the contradiction that appears there is something which is really difficult for us, solidarity movement, to deal with. Because on the one hand, as you said, they take a position that is quite in agreement with international law. On the other hand, they keep criminalizing the solidarity movement. They receive Netanyahu with, you know, all the luxury of the republic at his feet, kisses and closeness and political, excuse me, common political declarations that are really appalling. So it is extremely difficult to know what this president really wants relating to the Middle East and Palestine, Israel particularly. We know that he has close connections with Netanyahu. We know that, and that's probably part also of the problem we had yesterday, the Israeli embassy in Paris is extremely influential in our political circles at the highest level. And so we are, you know, at a loss what to understand and what to do with these people who are supposed to lead a republic to a situation where people are equal and where freedom is the motto, and who are doing exactly the contrary on the ground. It's a real challenge for us to deal with that.
It is well known, Claude, that the French government is hostile to the boycott, divestment, and sanctions movement. That hostility was not, it's not unique to the Macron government. Certainly, the regime of his predecessor, François Hollande, was also very hostile to BDS. Could you talk to us about the legal environment for BDS activists in France and the peculiar challenges they face there in promoting a movement which seeks only to ensure Israel's respect for international law by means of peaceful economic and political measures?
Yes, for a long time, it's not just, as you said, just this government, the one before, and even the one before, have always been hostile to anything that goes against Israel's policy. Any criticism of Israel's policy is considered as an attack on the Jews, which of course is completely wrong, and it is a sheer lie on the part of the authorities to say it. But this is the bias they use to destroy our image in the media, and they try to do it in public opinion as well. But we must remember that boycotting a country is absolutely not illegal, and it has been proven in courts. But some of our militant groups have been attacked and taken to court by Israel's friends in France. Some have been lightly condemned, but are taking the case to the European Court of Justice. What we do know is that boycotting Israel is seen as a terrible threat by the extreme right government in power in Tel Aviv. And because of that, they are trying everything they can to stop us. But the BDS movement in France is pretty strong. Of course, we support it. And we believe that it is a popular, peaceful way of expressing an opinion. It has nothing to do with anti-Semitism. But this government in France, including the president last summer, are making, amalgams that are really, really unacceptable, saying that any criticism of Israel means anti-Semitism, which is, it's an insult to us. We are anything but anti-Semitic. We are for the rights of the Palestinian people, a people under occupation, under blockade in Gaza, a people who has seen its rights completely denied for over 70 years, and in a sort of silence of the international community. I mean, not complete silence, of course. They do speak sometimes, lip service to international law and human rights, but on the ground, they do absolutely nothing. And our government does absolutely nothing to support Palestinians' rights. Our president still refuses to recognize the state of Palestine, which, of course, would be highly symbolic. We know it is not going to happen tomorrow to have a state on Palestine on what remains of the territory of Palestine with occupation and everything and colonization. Still, if they made this decision to proclaim the state of Palestine, because it has to be bilateral, it would be a great help to the Palestinian fight for justice and equality.
Well, we've been speaking to Claude Leostic, the president of the platform of French NGOs for Palestine, about the passage of 2 vessels from the Freedom Flotilla in the center of Paris. Thank you very much for joining us today, Claude.
Thank you.
And this is Dimitri Lascaris reporting for The Real News from Montreal, Canada.